Hi everyone, we're going to work on simplifying expressions with rational exponents. So this is going to be something new for us. We've never talked about rational exponents before, so let's make sure we define it correctly. All right, so what we mean by a rational exponent is basically we're going to write a radical as an exponent. So we're going to rewrite a radical as an exponent. Okay, so that's going to help us with multiplying and dividing, because remember we said we can't multiply or divide radicals that aren't the same. So this is going to take care of that square root of something divided by the square root of, or the cube root of something. All right, so we're going to be able to do that now once we rewrite the radical as an exponent. So here's how we're going to do it. So let's say our index is n, we have an a underneath as a radicand, and it's got a power. Okay, usually our power is 1, but let's say it looks like that. So we're going to be able to write this as a to the m over n, which means that the index is the denominator and the numerator is the exponent. Now that exponent can be on the outside or the inside. So by definition, you can have n square root of a to the m where the exponent's on the inside. And we would still write this as a to the m over n. Okay. You're going to see me write it as n, the nth root of a, whole thing taken to the m power. It's just more comfortable with the way I'm going to do it. All right, this sounds really confusing, so let's start with just rewriting radicals as exponents. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is look for what is the index. So remember, this index is 2. It's understood to be there. So it's the square root. So we're going to take our radicand, which is 36. Our denominator is 2, and our exponent, well, there isn't 1, so we're going to go 1. So this is 36 to the 1/2 power. I'm going to put parentheses around that just to make sure. All right, so 36 to the 1/2 power means the square root of 36, so we can simplify that down just to 6. All right, so let's try this one. All right, we have the square root of 5 cubed. Okay, so index again is 2. So 5, my denominator is going to be 2. In this case, I have an exponent, which is going to give me 3. So this is 5 to the 3/2. All right, why don't you pause the video and try the next two on your own. All right, so let's try 3. Okay, so I wrote that as 16 to the 1/4 power, and the 4th root of 16 is 2. Okay, so let's try 4 together. All right, so this is going to give us 2xy. Okay, our index is 6, so that's our denominator, and 3 is our exponent. So yes, you can reduce that and make this 2xy to the 1/2 power. So that's going to make it a little bit easier. Now, our rules of exponents allow us to give everybody the 1/2, but I'm okay right now just leaving it like that, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in a few minutes. Okay, and here is 5. Okay, so 12 to the 5/3. All right, so hopefully that made sense. Remember, the index, which is your root, is in the denominator, and your exponent, if there is one, is the numerator. All right, so let's go the other way. So let's write these in radical form. So remember, our index is going to be 7 here because that's our denominator. X, whole thing taken to the 3rd power. Let's try the next one. All right, so 216 to the 1/3. So that means my index is 3, and my radicand is 216. My exponent is 1, so I'm not going to be able to, I don't have anything. I could write it to the 1st power, but it's not going to matter. All right, try 3 and 4. Okay, so pause the video and try 3 and 4. All right, so here's what I got. All right, so 8, the index is 8. Our exponent is -5. So we're not quite finished because it's negative exponents mean we got to put it on the bottom. So I have 1 over the 8th root of w to the 5th power. Now, if we were really finishing out this problem, we'd have to simplify that and get rid of the radical in the bottom of the fraction. But we were just rewriting, so we're going to leave it just like that. Okay, here's 4. Now, 0.2, remember, is 2 over 10, right? Writing a decimal as a fraction. And then simplifying made it 1/5, so it's the 5th root of p. All right, so here I have your properties reminded you. So if you remember, we did that worksheet last or 2 weeks ago on our properties. So hopefully remember them, and I have them here for you to reference. So let's try a problem. Now, originally, we would not be able to do this problem because, first of all, we have a 4th root and an 8th root. So let's write these in radical form and see what we can do. So the numerator is going to become the x to the 3/4 over x to the 2/8. Ooh, 2/8 I think we can simplify. Yes, we can. So x to the 3/4 over x to the 1/4. All right, so we're dividing. So if you remember, that means we're going to subtract our exponents. So this is x to the 3/4 minus 1/4, which is x to the 2/4, which is x to the 1/2. Now you can leave it like that, or you can write it as the square root of x. So that concept that we could not divide these because they're not like radicals, we can now do that. Now we can only do this for multiplying and dividing. Don't try and do it for adding and subtracting. All right, so let's try this one. So we're going to write 3 to the 1/2 power times 3 to the 1/4 power. All right, so if you remember, according to our properties, when we multiply bases, we add exponents. So we have 1/2 plus 1/4. We need a common denominator to be able to add fractions. So 1/2 in terms of 4 is 2/4. So 3 to the 2/4 times 3 to the 1/4. So we're going to add our exponents, and we're going to get 3 to the 3/4. We can leave it like that, or you can write it as the 4th root of 3, whole thing cubed. Okay. All right, let's try another one. All right, so here, that 2/3, first thing I'm going to do before I even do that is I'm going to write xy to the 1/2 power. So negative 8x, xy to the 1/2 power. Whole thing gets a 2/3. Okay, so that looks really complicated. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 1/2 and give it both to the x and the y, because that's one of our properties. So I have negative 8x, x to the 1/2, y to the 1/2. Whole thing taken to the 2/3 power. All right, so you can give everybody the 2/3 if you choose to do so now, or you can add your exponents with the x. I think I'm going to take care of the inside first. So I have negative 8. Remember, there's a 1 with that x, so 1 plus 1/2 is 3/2 y to the 1/2. Whole thing taken to the 2/3 power. So that 2/3 is going to go to everybody inside. So I get negative 8 to 2/3. Okay, we're going to multiply our exponents. So 3/2 times 2/3 is just 1. And then y to the 1/2 times 2/3 is 1/3. Okay. All right, so let's simplify this. Okay, so we get negative 8 to the 3/2. So that's negative 8 cube root, whole thing squared. I have an x and I have the cube root of y. All right, so let's keep going. I'm running out of room here. All right, so the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2, and negative 2 squared is 4. Okay, I'm going to come up here. So that's going to give me 4x cube root of y. Can't do anything with that. So there is our solution. Okay, so that one's a little bit more complicated because you had to take care of what's inside first. Then give everybody the 2/3 and then simplify. Okay, why don't you guys try 4 and 5? Or sorry, let's do 5. And then we'll come back and do 4 and 6 on your own. Okay, so here we're dividing. So remember, we're going to subtract our exponents. So we're going to do our x's first. Here they are. So we're going to do 2/3 minus 1/2. We're going to need a common denominator. So it looks like 6. So multiply by 2. Okay, so 4/6. And then the denominator, we're going to multiply by 3. So that's 3/6. Okay, and our y's, we're going to get 4 as our common denominator. I'm not going to do anything quite yet until I get my common denominator so I can subtract my exponents. All right, so 4/6 minus 3/6 is x to the 1/6. Negative 1/4 minus negative 2/4. And I think I better write that out. Negative 1/4 minus negative 2/4 is positive 1/4. And that's where I'm going to leave it. You can write it as the 6th root of x times the 4th root of y, but let's leave it like that. That's perfectly fine. All right, try 4 and 6 on your own. Pause the video, and then we'll check our answers. All right, let's check this out. So here's 4. Okay, so I gave everybody the 3/4. Okay, then I wrote the 16 to the negative, the 4th root of 16 to the negative 3rd. Now, 4th root of 16, we can find that's 2. And then I moved it from the numerator to the denominator because it was negative. And then negative 8 times negative 3/4 is 6. Okay, so he's just staying right where he is. And I get y to the 6th over 8. Okay, and 6, I gave everybody a 1/3. So 8 to the 1/3 x squared over 27 to the 1/3 y cubed. Cube root of 8 is 3. 27 to the 1/3 is 3. Now, if you're struggling with the whole 8 and 27, you can put it in the calculator as 8 to the 1/3 power, and it will give you 2. You just have to make sure that that 1/3 is in parentheses so that your calculator knows that you're doing that particular power. Okay. Please let me know if you have any questions about this. And otherwise, I will talk to you later. Please stay safe by staying in.